Hey guys, it's Linda Winter, and I want to show you the Ditty Baskets, and I have some new things. Ditty Trays, and then I have Ditty Rectangles. A lot of you have gotten my templates already that are Ditty Baskets. The Ditty Baskets kind of look like a plus sign, and it's D-I-T-T-Y, Ditty, like for your doodads and your ditties. So all the little things, your clips and your buttons and your trims, but they can also be used for coins and keys and, put near your front door and that kind of stuff. So this guy here, you can go online and you can print out, on paper, something like this and cut around. But the no-slip material is what I really focus on because that's my business. I sell templates with a no-slip backing. When you see me cut, you'll say, oh, I get it. When you get it in your hand and you cut it, you'll be like, oh, I really get it. So I want to first talk about the different sizes that I have because I have some new sizes and I have some new styles. And then you're going to see me cut, and then I'll sew one up for you so you can see how they're done. This is a Ditty basket, and the Ditty baskets I have over here, I've got a bunch of sizes. Originally I had 3/4 of an inch difference, but Darla and her sister Karen, hey Darla and Karen, they came and they filmed a video on how to make these. They actually made this one. And if you notice, with 3/4 of an inch in between the sizes, they don't nest as well. When you're using regular fabric, this is that pet kind of material that you have for the pet screen. They call it pet mesh, but it's also pet screen material because it's a little bit thicker and stiffer. They don't nest. When you're doing it out of fabric, these are ones that my friend Joni made, so these nest really well. You can see that I have some here and they nest really well. So now if you want to do the mesh, then the ones that I have that are 1-inch increments will make a difference too. So I have all these different sizes over here. You can go look online and see what size. You just have to kind of decide which one you want to work with. And it's kind of a square, almost. It's a little bit angled. So those are the Ditty baskets. Then I came out with the Ditty Trays. I love the Ditty Trays, love the Ditty Trays. These are Ditty Trays, and you can see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and they all nest. And what's nice about the Ditty Tray is it has a little bit of a curve to it, but you can use it for whatever. So if you are doing out of the pet screen material, if you're doing out of vinyl, if you're doing out of wipeable laminate fabric or whatever, then you can put food in here if you wanted to. PUL, polyurethane laminate. They make a food grade material. It's wipeable, washable, breathable, so it's kind of food safe, but make sure that the material you use is food safe. But you can also just put a piece of fabric or a paper towel or a napkin or whatever inside of here too, if you want everybody to have one for their chips or their nuts or whatever. But you can see these guys here are smaller in height, and then they go out a little bit because they have a smaller triangle. This triangle that's cut out here versus this is a big one here. So those guys there make the difference. So those are called Ditty baskets. The Ditty Ditty Tray. The Ditty baskets, this is kind of tall. And if you want to, when you're making these, this is tall, and you can see how I took the lining fabric and I just kind of folded it over to give myself a faux binding. But if you didn't want it this tall, you could simply fold all of these down. And now you've got a tray, kind of. It's still a basket, but it's a little bit shorter. Take the time to fold that correctly. But if you don't want to do that and you want to buy one that already is shorter, then I have a Ditty short. This is this right here, the Ditty short, and you can see how it's not quite as tall. If you want other sizes in this, all you have to do is call me and I can make these. We have a laser machine. We can cut these for you, so no big deal. The Ditty rectangles, so Ditty basket rectangle. I've got 3 different sizes right now. If you want a different size, all you have to do is let me know. These are all made the same way, but one of the things you might want to do with these is when you're pressing them, go ahead and fold down. I've got all these different rulers and all these little guys here. They're not made so much for cutting, but they're made for marking. So if you wanted to mark how far here to sew, you can see I've got a stitch line there, then you can use one of these and just place this along and you say, okay, I'm gonna start from here to here and just use a chalk pencil and then stitch along that if you wanted to do that. So these are the trays. That's about the only difference you would have with making those versus all of these. Okay, so I want to show you how to cut. I have cut marks. The cut marks make this cutting simple and easy. Let's get those out of the way so you can see the sewing machine. All right, so when we cut, you can see I've got fabric and fabric. fusible foam. And this here is my SF101. SF101 is a woven fusible, and I like this as one of the layers, and I like the fusible fleece as one of the other layers. So I've got those already pressed on there. Follow the manufacturer's directions for that. But you can see when I move this, the fabrics stay together. So basically I have 4 layers of fabric. When I go to cut, because there are cut marks here, that's where my rotary cutter can go inside of here. If you're cutting with a regular template or an acrylic template, you're going to hit here and you're going to hit here, and it's not going to cut all the way and cut that corner out. Because I have the cut marks here, they show on the front, they don't ever show on the back. So if you think, oh no, mine's not good, it's not supposed to show on the back. That kind of, it seals itself after you cut through. It's just the cut mark on the front. That's going to allow me to cut. So I've stacked up my layers. I'm going to place this on top. I want to make sure that all my fabric is covered so that when I put the template down, I'm good to go. Now you can do a bunch of different ways, but what I want you to think about is pressure here with your hand. When you're putting pressure here with your hand, that allows me to cut and turn. If you're doing this, I don't have as good of control. If you're not comfortable with these cut marks, first practice. Just grab a scrap of fabric and just practice cutting that stuff right there, just so you get good with it. And if you're really not comfortable and you don't even want to try it, I'm looking for a pen, but you could go in and just draw inside of there on each one of those, and you can cut with scissors. But I promise with a little bit of practice, you're going to love these cut marks. I'm going to cut and then turn the template. Now I'm left-handed, so you can use whatever rotary cutter, but for me, I'm left-handed. So I'm going to cut and I turn the template. I'm going to cut. I'm doing all my 4 edges first. That way I get everything lined up. And now I go in. I'm going to cut inside of here. When you cut inside of here, I push all the way. You notice where my hand is? Here, not over here. Because if you go and you go up, you're going to do some damage. And I don't want to hear any phone calls. I don't want to hear anybody complaining about that. Do you see what I just did? I'm going to do that 3 more times. So cut inside of there, turn, and cut. That cut mark allows me to go in and cut all of these out. So I'm not having to trace. I'm not having to pin. I'm not having to do any of those things, the markings, all of that stuff. If it's tight, no big deal. Just try it again. And if you, again, are not successful, you can just use some sharp little scissors to pull those out. All right, so once you've cut, we're going to go ahead and remove that. And now it's as simple as sewing one edge to another. You can pin or clip, totally up to you. What I'm going to do is just grab my 2 edges. These line up perfectly. These edge lines line up perfectly. And I like to start right at the inside of that. So at the sewing machine, you can use a table or not, totally up to you. And I like a 1/4 inch, but you can do a 3/8, whatever it is that works for you. I like to start a little bit further in, and then I'm going to back stitch. We're going to back stitch anyway, so why not start a little bit further in so your machine doesn't eat up that fabric. So I'm going to stitch, back stitch, and I'm just holding the 2 edges together. Now you could use clips, you could pin, totally up to you. Oh, and this machine, I broke off the cutter there. So as I'm cutting, since I have scissors in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and snip this corner right along there. We're going to leave this here because I'm going to end up turning them in one direction. You can press. I'm not a big presser, so it's totally up to you. And we're going to continue on the next side. So what I'm going to do here is, again, since I've got scissors in my hand, I'm trimming now. Now if you have a machine that has a cut, go ahead and cut that, and you can cut those later on. I've done the 2 sides. Notice I folded diagonally, so we're going to fold in the opposite direction, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm not worried about it being pretty at all right now as far as the, those edges go. All I want to do is do the 4 sides. We're going to be doing this for both the lining piece and the outer piece. Do I know which one is the lining and the outer? No, because I kind of let it tell me what's going to be the outer and the lining. What I like to do is use the same fabric and do a matching set if you're getting several of these. And And with a project like this, it doesn't really matter whether you have the SF101, which is the lighter material. That gives it a little bit of stiffness. It doesn't matter whether it's that or whether it's this, the fusible fleece, that's for the outside or for the lining. And a lot of the projects, it does make a difference on which you put where. But the idea is, you know, it's okay. Whichever one of these is going to be the outer and the inner, I kind of let it be. It's going to tell me. All right, so we would continue on with this. I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back in just a second. All right, so I've sewn both of these pieces, and again, it really doesn't matter which one's going to be the outer or the inner at this point, but when we put these together, I do like to have the fleece, that one going inside. To me, it's just easier to have the thicker material. This is a little stiffer and a little bit thicker on the inside. So I'm turning this right sides out, and I'm going to place this inside of here. This one is the wrong side out. So we're just going to tuck this in, and what we'll do is we'll line up the corners. And again, this is where if you want to use pins, use pins. If you want to use clips, use clips. If you've got a table on your machine and you can remove it, this would be a good time to remove it. I'm going to show you on a smaller piece how you have options. If you're not able to remove your table, it's still a project that's easy enough to do with that table on there or the arm on there. What I'm doing now is just lining these up, trying to look for my seams that are there and lining those up. I'm going to grab clips, and the Ditty Trays and the Ditty Baskets are really good, if I can grab this one, to hold your clips. So they become a really great storage too. This little guy here is perfect for these. So I'm going to grab a clip and place right before this seam that's here on each side. If I'm doing one of the bigger projects, especially like the Ditty rectangles, those baskets, then I would probably do 2 clips. We're going to have one area at the top where we're going to leave this open. So if you want to put a pin in there to determine where it is, you can, but guess what? It's where we start is where we're going to stop, leaving us a gap. So right here where I am, I'm looking to see that everything's lined up pretty good. I'm going to remove that one because I'm going to start stitching right about here. When I stitch, what I want to do is, because I haven't trimmed this back and I haven't pressed those open, it's a Ditty basket. It's not that big of a deal, but if you're making these and you're selling these and you want to do beautiful work, then you could have pressed these ahead of time, and even when you press them, you could even stitch them down at the top here just to lock them in place. What I'm going to do is have this, which is the lining inside right now, going that way, and as I sew, I'm going to have this one going towards me. So that's where a stiletto or a pair of scissors, if you need it to hold that in place, works. What I'm going to do is, again, start here and stitch. When I finish, I'm going to stop right about here. You can see how these aren't lined up right now. When I get over there, I'll be finagling that and pushing that inside a little bit. All right, so this slips easily on here. You can see that. This one, this is the smallest of the sizes. You can see how that slips in there too. And look how easy that would be with the clips removing as you're sewing to turn and to turn and to turn and to turn. So this, even the smallest size, will work on most sewing machines. But you can also stitch this way if you have a table or an arm on there, or you can stitch this way. Notice this right here, it's going to interfere. Some machines have more things over here, some have less. There's more clearance or less clearance, so it's totally up to you. I like this just because it lays flat a little bit, but you can see how that will let me get right inside of there. I want to show you this larger one just so you get a chance to see the process. And I'm going to place this right inside of here because I have the ability to do that. When I bring this down, I'm going to use the same seam allowance that I used before, but it's totally up to you. If you want to make this a little bit shorter, so it's not quite as tall, you can increase your seam allowance a little bit. If you want to make it shorter, then I would have trimmed right from the start, you know, a little bit off of here. You can use one of the rulers or one of the templates that I have. If you cut all your fabrics, imagine that this is fabric, and you can place this down and see how I'm lining that up. Imagine that's fabric and right to the edge, and I could cut off and cut off. This is 1.5 inches. I probably wouldn't cut off that much, but you can grab one of the other rulers that I have. Here's 3/4. You can cut that off if you want to. So it's totally up to you as to how you want to modify this. That's the great thing about the no slip material. It's going to grab and it's going to do the work for you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and lock my needle in, back stitching if you want to, but one of the things I like to do instead of back stitching is I'm just holding this in place. You can see I'm just holding that in place. That locks that in. Sometimes when I back stitch, you know, if you watch me before, I'm not the best sewer, I'm not the straightest sewer, I'm just not the neatest. Part of it is I don't really care. It's a get her done kind of project, but you know, when you can, go ahead and do the things that help you get better results. If you back stitch, sometimes we don't stitch right on top of itself, so just hold that in. And then here is where I'm pushing this forward. Again, if you need to have something like a stiletto, holding that down as you stitch, you can have that right under there. And you see I've got it right under the foot. You probably can't see, but you get the idea that that right there is going to hold that in place. And then I continue on. I don't have a whole lot of angle to this, so I don't have to lift up the needle and press and turn, or lift up the needle and then reposition the needle and turn. All I need to do is make sure that I have clearance here with those clips. And I'm holding this, I removed that clip a little while ago, I'm holding this in place just to keep those edges together. And again, you can grab the stiletto if you want to. I'm just using my fingers because it's, you know, pretty basic and pretty simple. I don't have a lot of bulk here, so I'm not fighting with the fabric. And I just continue on. What I want you to think about doing with these is assembly line. Assembly line, if you're going to make a whole bunch of these, do all of your cutting, do your pressing. We'll do your pressing first, putting on all of the fusible, and then do all of your cutting, and then so that you're doing all of the darts first, and then the inside or the outside, whichever ones. And then get to this point, and then you put the next one on, put the next one on. An assembly line allows you to kind of keep that momentum going and get into that motion that you're in. And it's that same process doing over and over, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So it's a fun project to do. All right, here's where I started. So I need to give myself just a little bit of space to turn, about 1.5 inches or so. We don't have a ton of room. So when I get right to about there, I'm just gonna, you can back stitch or you can just hold it in place to lock that in. Okay, so we have gone ahead and stitched this top area. And now this is where, if you want to do any trimming, we're going to go in for sure and trim that bulk off at the corners. Totally up to you. Sometimes having that bulk when you go to top stitch, if you want to. Top stitching along the edge is optional. Here's one that I didn't do top stitching. Here's one that I did do top stitching. So it's totally up to you as to whether you want it or not. But if you have all of this consistent, sometimes the top stitching is easier. This right in here where the bulk is, you know, I've debated, do I trim that when I trim the bottom pieces, or do I trim that now? I probably, now that I've shown you one way, I probably would trim when I get to this point here and trim all that excess off. The problem is when you're sewing all of that right there, you want to make sure that you're not having a huge amount of bulk. You can see right there, I can't hold this back as much and hold this down as much. That creates some bulk, but that bulk versus this bulk, try it out and then let me know what it is that you like. I love hearing from you guys about what works well, but if you trim that out and trim that out before you sew, that might reduce some of the bulk that you have here. All right, we've gone ahead and sewn. I've trimmed all those except for this one. And let's talk about trimming. We can trim all this excess off if you want to. You can use pinking shears. There's really no point or no need to do pinking shears here just because we're not doing any curves. So you can trim this out. Honestly, I don't do it, but again, it's one of those things you can decide if it works better for you. Are you a getter-doner like me, or are you a perfectionist where you want everything to be perfect? The one area where we don't trim is right here. You can, if you want to, go to the ironing board and take this and basically press right here and press here. To me, it's not really worth it because when we're in the turning process, it's going to get all kind of messed up anyway. But do you see what I'm doing with this? I can use the stiletto instead of the iron and press that down. Again, I don't think it's worth it here because we're going to be turning this inside out. With this little hole that I have here, if you're not comfortable with turning, then you can make that hole a little bit bigger, but I'm basically going to be grabbing inside and we're just pulling and we're just finagling. Now, if you have a small iron, I highly recommend pulling it out for this project. If you don't have a small iron, then go to your kitchen and grab one of your oven mitts. I'm going to show you an oven mitt that I have in just a second and why I like the oven mitt. But do you see how pretty easy that was for me to turn? And I've got right there, not a whole lot. There's 1.5 inches, so I've got about 1 3/4 inches, maybe 2 inches that I have there. What we're going to do now is head over to the iron, and I'm going to pull and pull and pull. And if it's big enough like this, we're going to press inside of there. When it's smaller like this, we may not be doing the pressing now, but we'll do the pressing a little bit later on. Why do I want to pull? I want these seams to be as sharp and as crisp as possible. When you've got these stacked up, you know, that's part of what matters. Having those seams nice and consistent and open, basically showing where it is that you've sewn makes a difference. So even pulling here where those seams come together, pulling here where those seams come together, all of that is going to make it a whole lot easier when I have that iron in front of me. I'm going to move my machine and bring over, actually we're going to head over to the iron. So I'm hoping that y'all will be able to see what I have over here. All right, so I mentioned an oven mitt, and this is my shorty oven mitt. The reason why I like this oven mitt is that it's teeny tiny. This allows me to make a ball and get right inside of one of these. Let me grab one of these. And if I wanted to press inside of here, do you see how I can press? If I wanted to press this edge, you see right here, I can go in and press. Because I have this right here, so thick, it's an oven mitt. It's basically an ironing tool too. So I can press right on top of here. And again, back to the fist. When I have my fist, I can press on here too. So I can go in and press and press and press. You get the idea. For now though, what we want to do is press those seams. So what I'm going to do here is take this and just hold. I'm pulling here, and then I'm going to pull over here. And all we're trying to do is lock in those seams. So you're going to do that all throughout. Once you've done that, then we'll start pulling from the top. So I'm going to do that on here, and then we'll come back in just a second. All right, so what I've been doing is pressing inside of here. I've got my seams here, and I've been pressing inside, and then I flip it over and I press inside. Pressing is probably the most time-consuming thing to do on this, and pressing will make a difference. Pressing matters. You've heard that expression before, but for something like this, it's really true. So we're going to do all of that. And again, I've been pulling this way too to get those seams open. Right there is where my turning area is. So what I'm going to do is just pull that and tuck inside. We're going to do one way and press, and then we're going to do the other way and press. And all we're doing at this point is just getting everything so that it's about as sharp and crisp as it can be. If you like starch, I do like starch, then you can use starch on here too, so it's totally up to you. One of the things that I talk about doing, it's hard to show in pictures, but it's this. This right here, I don't know if you can see, I'm rolling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to get that seam here so that it's nice and pretty. When I press this right here, I don't want that, unless I'm choosing to do that. I did that on the other one. That makes that lining a little bit shorter, but it gives you that faux binding. What I want to do though is have this look here. So I'm rolling back and forth. When I get to where I think it's pretty good, I'm going to take this right inside, and I'm just basically holding that down. And again, if you want to use starch, go ahead and do that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other sides. Going back and forth, looking to make sure that I've got everything lined up there. And when I've got it to where I want it, then I'm going to hold that. All we're doing right now is just pressing that seam so that it stays open. You know, it stays nice and clean. Again, you can choose to top stitch if you want to on that. You don't have to if you've got a machine that does a really nice bobbin stitch. That's kind of how I determine, you know, is my machine working? Is it giving me nice stitches? Because both the front and the outside and the inside stitches are going to show. So I want those to be pretty. So if your machine is not doing that well, or if you've got a machine that doesn't handle a lot of the bulk where those are, there's a hump jumper or a jump humper. I'm not sure which one it is, but you all know probably about it. That's a great tool to put on your sewing machine too. So I've done these 3 sides. Now we're at this area here, and you know, sometimes you can pull and it'll close, but because I pressed a bunch of times and I have that fusible on there, it doesn't always go where I want it to go. So if you need to press that part flat again, you can do that. I'm just going to simply kind of tuck that in and see if I can get it to go where I want it to go. And all I'm doing is just kind of maneuvering that fabric. I'm going to press down. Now this one, this is the 10-inch that I'm making. I have an 8-inch. I've got a 9-inch. So if you've got a smaller one, that's where this oven mitt comes in really handy. All right, so if you think that looks pretty good and you like this on the outside, this on the inside, then you're good to go. I'm going to flop it around just so you can see what we've got. To me, it's kind of nice to be able to compare and choose your options, and you can see that one. I think that's pretty, but I really think this is probably what I'm looking for. This is a little bit busy, so what I have inside, I want to be able to see my items that are inside there pretty well, pretty easily. So I'm going to go back and just give everything a good press. Now what I'm doing is going in and pressing towards the darts, kind of getting into those darts and making sure that everything is kind of open. And I pushed those darts out already too. I'm going in and pushing and pushing. And that's where you can grab this if you want to. Right now I've got this that I'm going to be closing up, but I'm looking at all these other areas. And I do have to go in and kind of maneuver that fabric a little bit. And what I mean by that is I'm going to open this up. And I'm just going to kind of hold that down. I don't have a whole lot of space here. And that's where a stiletto works really well too. You can use that stiletto and kind of have it do the work for you so you're not worried about your fingers. And sometimes this is just a piece of cake, and other times not so much. Now you can sew this closed. You can use glue. You can use a peel-off tape. There's a lot of options for this, so it's totally up to you how you want to close that. Again, are you going to be stitching this closed, top stitching all the way around? Then that will make all the difference. Okay, so we're going to go back to the sewing machine. And this is where you would place this right inside if you have that ability. If not, you can go this way. Move your needle to the right and stitch all the way around. I like to start before this area here. You can see right about there is where I stitch. The other thing too is if you don't have a hump jumper, you can use something underneath your foot, something like a template. When you put that fabric down, you can use that. And then that kind of works as a hump jumper. What it does is it levels this foot out, so it allows you to get over that bulk. But if you don't want to do that even, then you can start right here, lock those stitches in, and when you get back around, you can stop right about here. So you're going to stitch here to here. So you get the idea. Lots of ways to finish these off. What I want you to do though is think about what our options are for making ditty baskets. So let me grab all of this. Let me show you how we talked about folding this down. And you can play with your fabrics and decide how much it is that you want to fold down. And this is where going back and pressing, and you can see it's moving on me, but you keep working at it and it'll get to the point where it will stay. And you will probably want to, if you decide you want to do that, you might want to tack it down, tack it down, tack it down, tack it down, make sure everything is nice and consistent. Take the time to look at it and see that it all looks good. But there's a Ditty basket that's been folded down. That's basically this one here, so you can see how tall that is versus this. So Ditty baskets. Ditty baskets come in a bunch of different sizes. The largest I have right now is a 12-inch. The smallest I have is a 7 3/4. So if you want a different size than that, let me know. We can do that, no big deal. My Ditty Trays, those are the ones that right now are my current favorite just because it's lower and I could see these at backyard barbecues. I can see this in your front door and your kitchen island, you know, for real practical kind of stuff too. Then the Ditty Short, that's the one that's basically this height, but it's looking like this. It's already cut. So if you don't want to do the taller one, you want shorter ones, that's an option for you as well. The only one I have right now is the 9-inch. You can let me know if you want more sizes in that. And then here are the Ditty Trays. These Ditty Trays over here, these are, sorry, Ditty Baskets. The Ditty Baskets that are rectangles. I have these 3 sizes. Again, you can let me know if you want to have different sizes. But these nest. These over here, Darla and Karen will be showing you how to do those. So look for the video. I'll be posting that soon. Look for this video that they filmed. And the inch sizes should allow them to tuck inside. These were done with 3/4 inch, but I have templates now that are an inch, and it should allow them to tuck in better. What they ended up doing was using kind of a seam binding method right inside of here. And between that and this pet mesh fabric, this pet screen material, it's a little bulky, so it doesn't allow you to nest inside. Fabrics allow you to nest. All right, guys, how do you find this information? Right here. This is me. My name is Linda Winter. If you have any questions, pick up the phone and call me. Phone is always better than email. I think I have like 39,000 emails right now. It's just not possible for me to go through all of them because I get a lot of requests for donations and spam and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to get me, call me. If I'm busy, then I will call you right back when I have a moment. My website, when you're at my website, you'll see that I have new products and new collection. They're collections, different products, you know, Mother's Day and Easter and those kinds of things. But there's one called New. And all the new stuff will be in there, so that's a good place to look too. But you can go through all the pages and make sure when you're at my website, sign up for my newsletter. The newsletter we're doing sporadically. When I do a newsletter, you'll get a discount. We'll do some kind of gift with purchase, and I'll introduce something new. So that's a fun way to kind of hear what's going on. So sign up for my newsletter. I don't do a ton on Facebook, but when I do a new video or I've got a new project, I usually try to post it on Facebook. So like me, follow, all that stuff, you know how it is on Facebook. And then on YouTube, I've got over 260 something videos, so there's lots to keep you busy. This set of tools, these templates, to me are such a fun thing to do. You can go print out a paper template and make your own. You don't have to have the template, but the no slip material, you saw how fast and easy it was for me to cut this out consistently. So every single one will be exactly the same. All right, guys, if you have any questions, pick up the phone and call me, and or leave a comment below, and I'll answer your questions for you there too. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.